everyone, and welcome to the snack bar. Yes, we're back. It's my fault. Anyway, let's get past that. My name is Geraldine, and with me I have.
Hi, I'm Jedd.
Yeah, we've been gone for a very, very long time,
Mm-hmm.
and luckily we're back now at the right time because Laika just released their new film Kubo and the Two Strings, and we're going to discuss about that. But before we do that, Jedd, is there any film that you saw this week that you want to talk about?
Alright, so I'm going to cheat a little bit. Since we haven't been recording for the past 2 weeks, these are not films that I've watched last week, but the week before that.
Cool. Okay, so what films have you seen?
I saw The Secret Life of Pets.
Okay. You see, I don't want to watch that because it looks exactly like a Toy Story ripoff.
Yeah, there is a lot in it that's very reminiscent of Toy Story, and also of several other films, like the whole pets trying to get home thing is very homeward bound. But I actually kind of enjoyed it. I think it's fine. I think that Illumination is really good with action sequences, and there are lots of visual gags, and there's some really intricately choreographed sequences. The art design is fun. I really like their interpretation of New York City, which is really vibrant, but still recognizable as New York City, and it's got a really nice score by Alexandre Desplat that really reminded me of George Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. Very breezy, very jazzy, and I think they've got a great voice cast. It's the first voice role of Louis C.K., and he's known for being like this really cynical comedian, really wry and kind of bitter, but he plays a Jack Russell Terrier, so he has to sound super enthusiastic, and I really bought that. And Jenny Slate is the main character's kind of love interest, and she's actually quite important in the plot because she's the one who goes out to rescue him. So she was Assistant Mayor Bellwether in Zootopia.
Mm-hmm.
And my
And
favorite.
now she's playing another poofy-head, white-haired animal, I guess.
Yeah, she's a little Pomeranian. And my favorite character in the film is Tiberius, a red-tailed hawk, who is voiced by Albert Brooks, and it couldn't be further away from the animated character that we know Albert Brooks as, Marlin from Finding Nemo and Finding Dory.
Mm-hmm. So he's very fun, I guess.
Not really. In a funny way, he's almost like Bruce the shark from the first Finding Nemo, because he's a carnivore, but he wants to make friends with other animals, and yet his killer instincts prevent him from being friendly.
Okay. Great, so they are copying off Finding Nemo too. Okay, continue, Jedd. I'm sorry, I'm not a huge fan of Illumination Studios. They're the studios that made The Lorax and Despicable Me, and I'm not a huge fan of those two films. And it sucks that Secret Life of Pets, I heard it did really, really well in the box office, even though there's nothing to me that's appealing about it. I guess people like it because there's a whole pets aspect to it, but I don't know. Like, I've heard it's not too bad, and you're saying like it's really fun, right? Like it's a really light, breezy film.
It's
But
very entertaining and very fast paced.
yeah, huh. I actually won tickets to see this film, but I chose not to go for it because I'm like, I don't want to watch any more Illumination films. I think I'm like done with them for now.
This needs to be on the DVD cover. I won't go even if I have free tickets, Jerry, the snack bar. Yeah, I mean, Illumination is the animation arm of Universal, and now Universal has acquired DreamWorks, so I'm not really sure what's gonna happen, whether they're gonna be side by side or whether they're gonna merge. I think it's possible that Illumination and DreamWorks will be smushed together into one entity.
Oh man, that's like one of my favorite studios. And okay, never mind. Well, whatever. Go on.
Yeah, I honestly didn't mind it. I felt that it's very much that archetype where you have two characters who don't get along and they're in competition with each other, and one's trying to push the other out, but over the course of the movie, it comes to the point where, hey, you're not so bad after all. It's not really that badly done, I think, and it didn't have that vibe that I think quite a number of modern animated films have, where you feel they're trying really hard to be hip, and they're trying really hard to be cool, and they're trying to have lots of topical references. I think that the humor in this, when it was aimed at adults, is the right kind of adult. There's this joke which I really like, which is an old basset hound, and he's got wheels instead of hind legs. So he wheezes the line, "For me, every breath is a cliffhanger." And it was like it was just like dark, but not depressing dark. It was just like, oh, he's old.
Okay.
Yeah, so I like the tone of it, and I think that it moves fast enough that you go along with the plot. And it's a very basic plot where it's find your way home, and navigate the obstacles. It's a road trip kind of thing.
I think this will be the type of film where I'll just watch it if it's on the plane or on the bus. And, it's just available there and I need something to be entertained by. It sounds like those type of films.
Yeah, it pretty much is. It's not brilliant.
I said I'm not gonna spend money just to watch it, but it's like I didn't even need to spend money on it. And I didn't watch it. Well, never mind. I would watch it, next time if I'm bored and I have nothing better to do.
Yeah, I didn't really like the villain in this, who's voiced by Kevin Hart,
The
the bunny.
the rabbit.
Yeah, because it
Mm.
does that thing where there are certain points in the character development which is a complete swerve, and they're like, that came out of nowhere. Why is he suddenly behaving like that? So there are a few things with the villain's motivation that I had some trouble with. But I think that as an animator, you probably would be able to appreciate, if not the story, then some of the design and some of the choreography in the action sequences.
Yep.
So
The
yeah,
animation looks really good.
it
Like
is.
that's Illumination. That's what Illumination does best. I mean, look at the minions; they're so appealing in terms of animation. But I hate their characters so much. Okay, sorry. Before I go in and on a minion rant again. Is there anything else that you watch? Also, obviously, you recommend this film, right?
I think it's all right. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5, and
That's really
yeah,
good.
I liked
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I was kind of surprised because I went in like skeptical. I went in with the knowledge that it was gonna be a ripoff of Toy Story, which is something you pointed out to me. And then once you pointed that out, I was like, this is so obvious. How could I have missed it the first time I saw these trailers? But then when I went in and watched it, it's like it stands enough on its own. It's okay, and I was entertained for however long that was, 80, 90 minutes. It didn't wear my patience. It didn't make me roll my eyes, and it didn't make me like want to strangle the people who made it. Which is what I was afraid would happen.
Were cats the assholes in this film?
A little bit, yeah.
I hate it when films do that. Okay.
Yeah, but
Continue.
it's
Next film.
the cat
Sorry.
is not malicious. The cat is aloof. So it's
Okay.
really really funny because she's voiced by Lake Bell, so it's a really laid back, really relaxed, like I don't care about you kind of cat. But she's not actively trying to sabotage the plot.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a real cat.
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Yeah, and the other thing that I'd like to talk about is Sully, which is the new Clint Eastwood film starring Tom Hanks.
Okay. How is it? Like, I'm interested in this film, so did you like it?
It's gotten pretty good reviews, but I liked it, but I don't think I liked it as much as the bulk of reviewers did, because it's done pretty well on Rotten Tomatoes. But when I watched the movie, the main feeling that I felt was there isn't enough to this story for a feature film. And it's not a long movie. For one of those based on a true story, it's actually pretty short. It's something like 96 minutes, which I was grateful for, but it still felt padded out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So how did they manage to pad out like that 6 minute of what happened in Sully or the flight?
The structure of it is that we don't actually begin with seeing the crash, with seeing the splashdown landing in the Hudson. The whole movie is really about the aftermath. It's about Sully being cross-examined and his judgment being called into question. He's treated as a hero by the public, but he's also the subject of a lot of scrutiny by the National Transportation Safety Board, and it's almost like he's being called to court. And and the big question is, could he have landed the plane at one of the nearby airports, at LaGuardia in New York or at Teterboro in New Jersey, instead of landing it on the Hudson River like he did. So it's a procedural. They have whole sequences where you watch other pilots do simulations to test out whether or not the scenario could have played out any differently. And then the crash itself happens in the middle of the film.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how they pad it out, where it's kind of like Sully's own self-doubt and his awkwardness when he's being treated as this overnight celebrity and he's really just a regular guy. and what sort of impact that has on himself, on his family, his relationship with his friends, and his career. That's kind of what it's about. It's like a personal drama.
So do you think this will be up for any Oscars? Because it sounds like a very Oscar bait kind of film.
It does, and that was one of my main problems with it, is that it's so Oscar baity, but yet the story doesn't seem to have a lot of substance. Like, I understand that a lot of people gravitated to the story of The Miracle on the Hudson, and there's so much appeal in the story because it's about an everyday hero, it had a happy ending, so on and so forth. But because this case was so widely covered in the news, and you've seen reenactments and documentary specials and TV interviews, it feels like we know more or less what there is to know. Like, what we see in Sully isn't particularly revelatory, and then the way in which Clint Eastwood and the writer Todd Komarnacki conveys Sully's self-doubt, it's very unsubtle, it's very on the nose, and some of the characters are a little bit cartoonish, and there's some very distasteful visual references to 9/11,
Oh,
where it's,
wow, okay.
yeah, I guess that's the thing you think about when you think New York and plane. But it's one of those things where you're invoking 9/11 because you know people will have an emotional reaction to that. So you're almost like pumping it up by drawing a line to something that happened which was so much worse.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I didn't really like that. But at the heart of the movie is Tom Hanks, and what can I say? Tom Hanks is great, and he really is cut out for this role. I feel like it's a bit too obvious. I read some suggestions, some alternate casting suggestions, and the one that jumped out to me was J.K. Simmons. I think J.K. Simmons would have killed it as Captain Sully. I would really like to have seen that.
Oh, I mean, they're kind of interchangeable, so I can see both of them in it.
Yeah, I guess like Tom Hanks is more of a reputation as a nice guy. I think J.K. Simmons is not as identified with being a nice guy because of his roles in Whiplash and in the Spider-Man movies.
Yeah.
He also looks a little bit more like the real Sully. Like, Tom Hanks looks pretty much nothing like the real Sully. But yeah,
Okay.
and Aaron Eckhart is the co-pilot. I kind of like that casting because he is more handsome than the real life First Officer Jeffrey Skiles, but it sort of hammers home the point that in any other Hollywood action movie, it would have been the action hero looking guy like Aaron Eckhart who would have landed the plane. He would have been the captain. So I kind of like that, where the all-American square-jawed hero is playing second fiddle to the unassuming, like, nice old guy.
Mm. Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, and there's like some pretty obvious Clint Eastwood like product placement. He has a big poster of Gran Torino in Times Square because that was the movie he was in and directed, and that came out around the time of the incidents. And then there's another big poster for Jersey Boys, which is the
Okay.
yeah. So
Mm.
it's a little bit.
Okay, I will give him this. At least he acknowledged that Jersey Boys is a thing, even though it was critically and commercially panned.
Yeah, I think it was. It received lukewarm reviews. People were like, "This is very meh." People were not like, "This sucks," but then nobody went to watch it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So good for him for acknowledging it.
That's true.
Like, he's still
Yeah,
proud of it.
it was going to be Jon Favreau, I think, who was going to direct that. Yeah, so that's
So,
Sully.
Sully, yes or no?
I'm on the fence about this. In the end, I gave it a 3 out of 5. I think that the spectacle is the main reason you'd go and watch this. It's filmed with the new Arri Alexa 65mm camera, so 99% of the movie apparently is shot in IMAX.
Oh.
Yeah,
Well,
which is
that's a
pretty
really
cool.
short film for an IMAX.
It is, yeah. And some of the CGI is questionable, but I think the sequence of the crash itself has so much tension in it, and is actually really well directed. I think Clint Eastwood is a good director, but this really is kind of standard Oscar bait stuff, and it doesn't feel all that. I mean, I don't mean any offense to Sully, but it doesn't feel all that remarkable of a story, especially since we're also familiar with how it went.
Okay, cool. So let's go on to Kubo and the Two Strings, our
Yeah.
main topic of today.
Mm-hmm.
What is it about, Jedd?
Kubo and the Two Strings is set in ancient Japan, and it centers on a young boy named Kubo, who is voiced by Art Parkinson. His mother, Sariatu, is sick and dying, and they live in this cave. So every day, Kubo goes out to the town square and he entertains the villagers by playing the shamisen, which is an ancient Japanese instrument kind of like a guitar or banjo. And the music brings origami to life. So he's able to tell stories using this magical form of animation. And the story that he tells has to do with his own father, Hanzo, a revered samurai warrior, and nobody knows what happened to him. So the bulk of the story is Kubo's quest in search of the armor that his father wore. So along his journey, he is joined by Monkey, voiced by Charlize Theron, and Monkey is kind of like a wooden little monkey charm that has come to life. And then he's also joined by Beetle, voiced by Matthew McConaughey, and Beetle is this samurai who has been cursed into an insectoid humanoid body, and he says he was a student and apprentice of Hanzo. So they go off together and they have to face multiple obstacles and ultimately defeat the Moon King, voiced by Ray Fiennes. And the Moon King is Kubo's grandfather. So his minions are his two other daughters. He's got three daughters. So he has Sariatu, and then he has these twins, voiced by Rooney Mara, who are creepy and cause problems. So that's what Kubo and the Two Strings is about.
Wonderful. So first off, easily, the first topic we have to talk about is how this film is freaking gorgeous and it is so beautiful and wonderfully animated. Like, even from the first scene, you see this water is one of the hardest things to animate in 3D. I'm not sure how they did this. I haven't checked it yet. But like, is the water, stop motion or is it 3D animated?
I think the water may be CG. I'm not very sure, but
Oh.
you're absolutely right because I remember reading about Flushed Away, which is that Artman movie, and Artman is a studio that does Wallace and Gromit, and they were going to do Flushed Away in claymation, but because of all the water, they did it CG. So I think that's
Mhm.
kind of what they did here. But there are some other stop motion animated films where they use Vaseline for water.
Yeah, because water, it's hard to predict how it will interact with other objects. So like to see this huge tsunami in the beginning of the film, I was like mind blown. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um.
and also water doesn't scale. You cannot have
Yeah.
scale models in water. It just looks weird.
Mhm. And I love the use of origami in this. Like it's very how Americans you know interpret Asian culture with origami and Asian instruments and stuff like that. But I do love that there is a sort of Asian culture to it, and even though it's a very American trying to interpret Asian culture, I do love seeing them. How about you? Like in a mainstream animated film, it's really hard to see it, so it's really cool. I don't know. Is it? Am I making sense here?
Absolutely, I felt that this was such a great idea to take inspiration from Japanese mythology and to draw on that iconography to use ancient Japanese instruments and art forms and costumes and even the styles of combat. I think that when Hollywood tries to do East meets West mashups, oftentimes it can be really weird or really insensitive. But this was gorgeous, and I felt that this flowed really well. They had a great sense of the story, and the story is an original story, but it's presented in a way that makes it seem like a folk tale which has been passed down through generations. And I really like it when
Mm-hmm.
that's done. I mean, Moana kind of looks like that as well. And when you talk about animation drawing on Eastern cultures, the examples that come to mind are Mulan and Kung Fu Panda. And this reminded me
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of those movies. And you also
I feel
have
like Mulan and Kung Fu Panda did a better job.
Um, I'm not so sure I would say they did a better job because I feel that Mulan and Kung Fu Panda respectively are very much in the Disney Renaissance and DreamWorks styles. And I don't think that there actually is like a Laika style of humor or storytelling because the tones of Coraline, Box Trolls, and Paranorman are actually kind of different from this. they're all kind of dark, but this is very different. This is not like that kind of story.
But I don't know, it's just halfway through the movie, I feel like Kubo kind of loses a little bit of what makes it feel very Japanese. Because, you have stuff like the sword and all that stuff. And, there's an ancient, there's an unbreakable sword and there's some sort of pedestal to it. And that feels very Western to me.
Oh yeah, like an Indiana Jones kind of thing. No, I felt that the
Yeah.
whole the whole sequence with the skeleton battle, that was really obviously an homage to Ray Harryhausen. So
Oh.
it's Ray Harryhausen is the special effects artist. He's one of the stop motion pioneers, and he did that famous scene in Jason and the Argonauts, which is them fighting the skeletons. So you've probably seen that scene around. And
Wow, okay. I did not even interpret, but that's a very cool interpretation now when you say it.
like
Did they say that it was based on that?
I don't think they did, but I think they must have mentioned Ray Harryhausen in previous behind the scenes things, because anybody who does stop motion is influenced, and it stands on the shoulders of Ray Harryhausen. He did that, the original Clash of the Titans, the one in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think,
okay,
like, the primary influence is Miyazaki. This is very, very Miyazaki-ish.
I didn't really get that because maybe it's because I'm very shallow, but like to me Miyazaki it has a certain art style, it has a certain color palette, and this one doesn't come off to me as Miyazaki. It feels very Laika, if anything. But it's not. It never occurred to me like this is an anime, because I always felt like this was a very American inspired Japanese sort of film instead of being a Japanese film, because it's not. Like it really isn't, and I never got the anime feel from it.
I think what you're saying is absolutely true, that this is how Western eyes interpret Japanese culture and Japanese art. But at the same time, I feel that they made a conscious effort, they made a really palpable effort to be authentic, to not mess with the culture or disrespect the culture in the way they were telling the story. I think that the amount of research they did shows. And even though, we'll get to this later about how most of the voice actors are white, but even given that, I think that there's a remarkable amount of cultural sensitivity. I don't think they're mocking any specific beliefs or any specific traditions.
No, I don't think they're mocking them too. If anything, it feels like a love letter to the Japanese culture. But at the same time, it does not. I would never say, because even Mulan feels very Chinese. Like it feels very Chinese inspired, but at the same time, it feels like something that I could see coming off a Chinese film, because it has that sort of aesthetics. But to me, Kubo was just, it was a beautiful film, and I only can see it as a homage to the Japanese culture over it trying to be part of the Japanese culture.
Yeah, I don't think that Travis Knight and the people at Laika were ever under the delusion that they were making a Japanese film, but I think that they were taking into account all of their predecessors, and they were taking into account those inspirations. Like Travis Knight specifically mentioned Miyazaki, and he mentioned Kurosawa, and I think that those are the two Japanese filmmakers that most Americans would have heard of if they've heard of any at all. Like those are the two Japanese filmmakers whose work has had the most international exposure. So it kind of makes sense that he would say that, even if it doesn't obviously come across in the style. Because like the art style of this, obviously the characters do look a lot like the Coraline characters or the Fox Shows characters in just their proportions.
Oh, okay, speaking of characters, do you like Kubo as the main character? I think he's an adorable kid. I really like him.
I like him too. What this is it's kind of a traditional chosen one story, but at the same time, I like that Kubo is still a kid. I like that Kubo is not a sage, that he's not a sort of wise beyond his years kind of character. He still has childish impulses. And
Mm-hmm.
what this is at its heart is, this is a story about storytelling made by
Mm-hmm.
storytellers. And that
Yeah.
really got me. Like, I really like how the main character, he is not a fighter, he's not a martial artist, he's a musician. I love that. I really, really like that, where the driving force of the story is this sort of creative power instead of brute force.
Hmm. I love Kubo because, like you said, he's not a fighter. He's more of a he's just a kid, and I love it when a film has a protagonist who is just a good guy and he just wants to do good. And even though this doesn't have the whole world will end kind of scenario, I love that you're always rooting for him and you don't want the Moon King to get his eye.
Yeah, and I feel that there's so many scenes in which he's kind of talking back to Monkey, or he's pouting or whining a little bit. But I feel that it's so easy to go overboard with that and make the character annoying. I never found Kubo annoying. I always
Yeah,
sympathized with him.
yeah, he's just being a kid, and that's adorable. I love it. He's adorable. He's like probably one of my favorite kid characters in an animated film.
I agree with
Which is saying
you.
a lot because there are a lot of kid characters in animated films. Because I love his attitude and I love his bravery and he's great and he has a lot of he's very sympathetic, especially what happens to him at the end of the film, and I really really love it. He's great. Like I'm glad. I mean I don't think I love him as much as I love Norman from Paranorman, but
Yeah, yeah.
he's definitely up there.
I agree with you. I think that Norman's struggle is drawn a lot more clearly, and his the torment of the character and his that's defined better because in this one, Kubo's backstory and his family history is deliberately ambiguous. With Norman, you know everything about his family history from the beginning, so you kind of are on board with him more, I suppose. But yeah, I like Kubo a lot, and I think that it's a really difficult balance to strike because on the one hand, your character can be really boring and very one note, and he's just there to go on the journey as the plot progresses. On the other hand, your character can have too much personality, and the character can be annoying. So I like that Kubo is in that sweet spot.
Speaking of characters with a little bit too much personality, do you like Beetle? Because he annoyed me a lot in this film. Like his humor felt very off from the tone of this film.
I absolutely agree with you. It felt like a DreamWorks character had suddenly barged into a Laika film, which I
Mm-hmm.
was a little bit disappointed with, but I think part of it was made up for by the fact that we
It's a scary
learn,
film.
um,
Oh, okay, sorry.
yeah, that we learn why Beetle is the way he is, kinda. We get like I think it's a satisfactory explanation, and he's a comic relief character, but it turns out that there's some substance to him. He really reminded.
But
Sorry, go ahead.
yeah, he does remind me of a DreamWorks character. I just I don't like that this film. I love that it's not a conventional animated family film where there's like stakes and there's scary imagery in it, and then you bring this character in and he can't take a serious scene seriously. They always need to add a joke at the end of whatever he says, and then it really really annoys me. Like one of them would be when he's talking to Monkey and he's talking about how Kubo will carry, their story for ever and ever, and he'll pass it on to the next guy and the next guy and the next guy, and that joke went on for way too long, and it just ruined the entire scene for me. And it was such a beautiful scene too, because it was such a touching moment, and you think, oh, okay, Beetle is getting serious. Nope, he's just joking again because they don't know what to do with his character.
Yeah, it he really reminded me of this character called the Tick. I don't know whether you know about the Tick. It's he's kind of a comic book pastiche, so he's a parody. And there was a live action series. I think Amazon is trying to bring back a live action series. And the Tick is also he also looks kind of insect-like humanoid because his superhero identity is based on a tick. But yeah, Beetle, it really felt like the movie on the whole was too dark when they conceptualized it, and they were like, we have to lighten it up somehow, and so it feels forced, all of the jokes that he has. But at the same time, I think Matthew McConaughey did a brilliant job because I, when I first heard the trailer, I was like, who is this? And when I went and looked it up, I was like, that's actually pretty good because you can hear him make an effort to tamp down the Texan sort of drawl that he's known for. It's not alright, which is what you expect from Matthew McConaughey. And at the same time, I think this is like his first animated. It's kind of like his first animated voice role, right?
Yeah, I think so.
It's very impressive, I think.
It's alright.
Because like if you listen to Brad Pitt in Sinbad, he's doing nothing. He's just doing Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, I watched Sinbad when I was a kid, so I wouldn't have known. I haven't seen it in a long time.
That performance annoys me because it's one of those things where an actor with a name will get chosen over very competent working voice actors just because they have the name and they think that that's what will pull the parents in. And DreamWorks is the biggest offender in that regard.
He was great in Megamind though.
Brad Pitt? Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How about Monkey? Do you like Monkey? She annoyed me at some points because she's a little bit too. It's so weird though because like I don't like Beetle because he's too funny. But Monkey, she has that. I love Charlize Theron, but I hate how a lot of what Monkey says is, "Hey, just do this. Don't do that. That's stupid. Hey, you don't do that. Kubo, what are you doing? No, you know."
Yeah, Monkey, funnily enough, also reminded me of a DreamWorks character. I think she's 100% Angelina Jolie's Tigress from the Kung Fu Panda films.
But Tigress is so much better. Especially in the second film.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Because we got a second film. I think that if you go
No,
off
but even in the first film, she had that backstory with Shifu, which I really like. But Monkey is just boring. She's so stern, and I like what they did with her character at the end, but before they revealed who she truly is, she didn't do anything for me, and it's like, come on, he's just a kid. Let him have a little bit of fun, you know?
here's what I'm thinking, and I think, all right, I feel like we should go into this in spoilers, but I have a bit of a theory of why the characterizations of Monkey and Beetle are as extreme as they are. So we'll get into that in spoilers. I felt that Charlize Theron, she has this hard ass attitude, but at the same time she's very feminine. So she doesn't
Mhm.
have that husky kind of voice, and it's not barking, but the way she delivers the lines, it's still intimidating. And there's one line which I really really like where she turns to Beetle and she goes, "You're an embarrassment," and the way she delivers that is kind of perfect.
Mhm. Okay, so let's talk about the other characters. Let's talk about the villains.
Yeah,
The sisters. They are very scary, especially their first appearance. Do you know their first appearance? There was this kid behind me. He just started crying because he was so afraid of them.
it is freaking creepy, and yeah, I feel that because what was I gonna say? Oh, Coraline is the first Laika film, and Coraline is very Tim Burton-esque. I mean, it's directed by Henry Selick, but it is produced by Tim Burton, and I think the specter of Tim Burton kind of hangs over all of Laika's films, where there's a bit of an offbeat, dark quirkiness to it, and that is most evident in Kubo and the Two Strings with
No,
the
I
twins.
I don't think Kubo has that weird Tom. What's his name again? Dang it, I
Tim
forgot.
Burton.
Tim Burton. Yeah, it doesn't have that Tim Burton feel because Tim Burton, there's like you say, it's quirky, but this one, it's just it feels downright scary. Like there's nothing fun about it. There's nothing weird about it. It's just okay. I am feeling uncomfortable right now. This thing is very dangerous, and I feel really scared for the main character.
I think they're weird in that they're magical and they levitate, and I don't even know whether they're twins or whether they're one sister who just split herself into two.
Oh no, they're twins.
They're twins, right? Okay, so
Yeah.
what this is obviously a reference to The Shining.
Oh god, you know what? We're doing this at night, and I'm so scared right now. Twins scare me.
Yeah, so it
Okay.
is that thing, right? Because it unsettles you when you see duplicates. It's what was one of the very nice plot devices in The Matrix. When if you see more than one thing, that kind of means that there's a glitch in the system. So twins, this goes way back in mythology. People are creeped out in some way by twins, and I think they played on that really well. But I don't know why they needed Rooney Mara. Like, I feel like maybe she's a bit too, like, she's not a huge A-lister, but she's a bit too big of a name for that role.
I like her voice though. She's very scary.
Yeah, they kind of like, they
Kubo.
echoed it, they waterphone effected, and yeah, the sequences where she's chasing him are really nice because there's a lot of kinetic energy to those scenes, and at the same time there's an otherworldly etherealness. So the threat is very well established. I think that they're pretty scary as henchwomen go.
Hmm. And I love the fight scenes between her and Monkey and who else they have fight. Yeah,
Did they
like the
fight
fight
Beetle?
scenes. Beetle a
I don't
little
remember.
bit, I
Yeah,
guess. Oh yeah. Yeah, they do.
like
I really like it.
the
The action scenes, the weight to it is super good. Like the sound effects, ooh, you can really feel that the hit between the swords.
yeah,
Or is it katanas? I don't know.
katanas are a kind of sword, so I think it's okay to say sword. Yeah, it's oh, if you look at action sequences just in live action movies and you watch how they're choreographed and all of the learning of the moves, it's so complicated. So you imagine doing that with stop motion and
Mhm.
just frame by frame by frame. And some of the fight sequences are so intricate. Some of the motions that Monkey pulls off when she switches from feet to hands, when she throws the sword around, when she flips about, it's so hard to do. When you look at that, you just kind of, yeah, like my palms are kind of sweating. It's like I cannot imagine being forced to do this. I would give up within an hour. And yeah,
Crazy. Oh man,
it's very
stop motion animators are crazy. They make me feel so tiny and useless. But it's like it's so good, the end product.
likewise, yeah, and it's really, you feel there's a lot of confidence in the way they pull these things off. I think you can see the evolution in the complexity of the sequences from Coraline to Paranorman to the box truth. This is almost linear, like you see them top themselves with how complicated the individual sequences are.
Hmm. I love that every Laika film you see them just pushing themselves more and more. And it's fantastic. Like this one, it's definitely that giant skeleton.
Oh yeah, the skeleton is on record as the biggest stop motion puppet ever built,
Hmm.
and
Beautiful.
oh, so good. And scale is one of those things that's very difficult to do when you are doing stop motion because the motions of the skeleton are so much slower than the motions of the characters that it's fighting. So you have to calculate how much do you move Kubo and Monkey Beetle, and how much do you move the skeleton in relation to them. I can't wrap my head around
Nope, me neither.
it.
It's crazy.
Yeah,
So how do you like Moon Knight? What's his real name?
The Moon King.
Yeah, sorry. I was okay because STGCC was like this weekend, and I saw Moon Knight. Yeah,
Yeah,
alright. Then that was in my mind.
there was a Moon
Sorry, I
Knight
meant
at
Moon King.
STGCC.
No, as in the statue
Oh,
or
by XM,
whatever
yeah.
it's called.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the character
Raiden, the Moon
Raiden,
King.
right? Yeah, which is the character of, which is the name of a Mortal Kombat character. If I'm not wrong, Raiden.
Yeah.
Um, I felt he was a bit of a
Didn't do
nothing
for you?
villain. Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know, because when I heard Ray Fiennes is going to be in this, I was very I was excited because I think Ray Fiennes has one of those authoritative English voices, but he also is able to be a little bit slimy.
Mhm.
And I really love his Ramesses in Prince of Egypt because that is such a layered character that is not just a two-dimensional villain. And this is very
Mhm.
much a two-dimensional villain.
Yep. He's just there, and then he's gone.
But at the same time, I think that part of it was intentional in the way that these are what villains in mythology are, where a lot of times there's a soap opera element of them being linked, having a familial connection, and being related to the protagonist. So he's the grandfather. So it's
Well,
sort
I
of,
don't think that's a good excuse for pretty much giving up at the ending. That's what it felt like to me. Like they gave up at the end
yeah,
because
I'm
they ran
agreeing
out of
with you
budget or
on
they ran
that.
out of ideas.
I'm agreeing with
Yeah.
you on that. I think that they kind of built him up so much that they had to have a Deus Ex Machina to defeat him. And you see that with some villains in some children's movies. But I did really like that one scene where it's kind of a hallucination and he appears to Kubo. And I think that was in the Garden of the Eyes, so that scene was nice. I wish there was a bit more of that in the middle, and that the Moon King didn't just show up at the end, because it's pretty much all it is. Just shows up at the end, and he's the final boss. So it's like through the whole
He's a terrible boss.
it's like through the whole movie you're fighting the sisters, and then finally you fight the Moon King. So yeah, this is the thing, right? When I was walking into this movie, honestly, I was expecting to absolutely love it and to give it like a 4.5 or 5 out of 5. But I ended up giving it a 4, and I think that a huge part of that is the villain.
For me, it was the ending. The entire ending, just from the moment he knew where to get the final piece of the whatever. I won't say what it is.
The MacGuffin,
but
yeah.
It just went downhill from there. And I think that's why this film, it easily could have been my favorite Laika film, but the ending happened. And I feel it's still Paranorman that's my favorite, followed by Coraline, and then this film. But it really sucks that the ending was so bad.
Yeah, I was waiting for kind of an emotional punch, and I didn't really get it. I was waiting.
They tried to.
They tried.
They did try to have an emotional punch, but the thing is, the emotional punch didn't make sense to what the entire movie is trying to tell us. And the whole movie is trying to say, hey, stories are important, stories are lived through us, and we can always pass down what was important to us, and we can pass down people's lives to other people and change their lives as well. But then the ending happened, and it felt like it didn't follow through at all. And that's why I was so confused by the ending and what it meant. And it didn't make sense to me that they decided to end it that way. And even the last shot did not make sense. Because it...
Right.
What just happened?
Okay, yeah, we'll get into that in spoilers. But I know, I feel that I agree with you to a certain extent in that the ending was very pat, it was very convenient, and I feel that it felt to me like it was going to be a much more sorrowful and a much more mature emotionally film than it ended up being because of the ending. Like, I wanted it to end on a darker note than it did.
Well, it did end on a pretty dark note, in my opinion. I was pretty sad when I went out because of how dark everything got, especially for poor Kubo.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but it's more or less a happy ending. I don't know, it's yeah.
He didn't seem that happy at the end of the film.
Yeah, we'll have to talk around this until we get to spoilers.
Okay, so let's just cap it off here. I think it's a fantastic film, but don't bring your young ones. Don't bring I think 10 years old should be alright. But I don't know, like the kid behind me, he was so scared of the entire film. I think Beetle and Monkey could have been better characters, but they were not a hindrance to the film. The sisters were cool villains, and Kubo is a great kid. But I don't think it's as good as Paranorman. I don't even think it's this year's best animated film. I still think Zootopia is a lot better with a better ending.
Really? And, okay. Yeah, I actually like this like a smidgen more than Zootopia.
Yeah, because I think Zootopia has a better message.
Okay.
Also, because especially since it's so topical, because Kubo is more about, it's more sentimental. Zootopia is more about, hey, don't be assholes, don't treat each other differently just because they look different from you. Like, I like that message, and I think it's very important for this period of time. And also, I think that Zootopia has better characters, and none of them annoyed me, and they all fit the world perfectly. Yeah, so that's why I think Zootopia is a better film as a whole over something like Kubo and the Two Strings. But I do think that Kubo is a fantastic film, and people should support films like this. Films that are different, you know? But they won't because watching movies are expensive. Yeah. But if you could, I really do think that you should support Kubo and the Two Strings.
Yeah, I really feel like this is something people should go out to see. This is something people should go and soak in. And I really, really wish that I had seen it in 3D. The screening that I had was in 2D, and I think that this would have been really, really fun to watch in 3D. Um, I do agree with what you've said about it perhaps not being suitable for really, really young children. And I think it's one of those things about the medium of stop motion where it can be very alienating. It can feel kind of disturbing or unsettling if it's used in a dark context, if it's not slapstick like Wallace and Gromit shot the sheep kind of thing. So it has an alienating quality to it. Like it's almost like being in a dreamscape, and I feel that that's what Kubo does very well. The environments, the designs, and the textures, the action sequences, the costumes, all of that stuff, the aesthetic of it is gorgeous, and it's really you really feel like there's a complete world, and that is very difficult to do when everything has to be built from scratch, when you cannot just go out and shoot in the forest and get production value that way. So that is worth getting behind, that's worth supporting. But yeah, I was a little bit disappointed with how simplistic some of the characters were.
Okay, let's move on to spoilers.
Okay.
Spoiler time.
Alright, yeah.
So, they died. I did not expect that. I mean, I expected Monkey to die, but Beetle was just
No,
wow.
they died but they came back.
No, they didn't. They came back as spirits, just you did.
No, I don't think they came back as spirits, you see. I think they were restored into their corporeal like the human forms. I don't think they came back as spirits.
No, I think they did.
Really?
They are dead.
They're dead?
Yeah. The whole point of Kubo is about memories and stories, and I think what they're trying to say is he's gonna talk about his stories that he traveled with his parents to defeat the Moon Knight, Moon King, whatever. I think that's what they're trying to say. Yeah. So when I walked out, I'm like, oh my god, this poor kid just became an orphan after he found out that two of his parents are still alive.
Yeah, that's okay. I think you're right, but my interpretation of it is that that it was that it was a happy ending. That it was like he had both of his parents return to him. I think like what was when he went to that tree and he was like making his offering, it was kind of like he was willing them to come back, and then they didn't. But I think in the end they did. I don't know. That's how I read it. Kind of read it like the spirits
Oh,
took
but
pity on him and then brought them back to life.
no, his parents are dead, man.
Okay.
Yeah, like because he held the two lanterns, and then two of them were lit it up.
Yeah, so those are their like those are their spirits, but he was able to see them one last time and kind of like get
Mm-hmm.
closure. So that's what was happening.
Yeah,
Okay,
and I don't
I see it. All
understand.
right, I get it. I get it now.
Isn't it sad now,
Yeah, I get
Jed?
it now. I
Isn't it
get it
so
now.
sad?
Yeah, I that's
Um,
that. Yeah, I think that's the mistake that I made is that I didn't interpret it as they were spirits. I interpreted it as they actually did come back to life, and I was like, that's kind of convenient.
and it's so sad too because like what he was saying when he was praying to them was, I wish you give me one more chance or something like that, like so I can finally finish this story and it can be happy. And it's like clearly he's not gonna get that happy ending, and
Yeah.
it's just making me tear up just thinking about it. Yeah, it's so sad. He lost his parents. Ah,
Yeah, it's well, a lot of heroes are orphans. I guess that's what they were going for.
yeah, but I mean, you don't really see them go through. I think the saddest part about this is that he finally, he was with, he had an entire family with him, and he didn't even know it until they were murdered in front of him.
That's absolutely true. That is very, very sad because it's for that point of time and through the journey, he doesn't know that's his mom, he doesn't know that's his dad, and once he finds out that they're dead. So for for the period of time he had them, he didn't know who they were to him.
Yeah, and then now he has his grandfather, who is the reason why both of them are gone. Ah,
Yeah, and he had to do the heroic thing and spare the grandfather's life.
yeah.
And did you like that? Do you think they should have ended with him just like murdering the Moon King? Or
I mean, I'm okay with either one. It's just that I really thought that the ending would be more climactic than that. I'm gonna spoil a little bit of Kung Fu Panda. I'm gonna spoil a lot of Kung Fu Panda 3, but I thought he'll turn into a dragon or something when like all the spirits and the memories were coming towards him. Oh, and I also love that the puzzle, the solution to the puzzle at the end was in the title itself, which is Kubo and the Two Strings. So he uses his dad's like bowstring, he uses his mom's hair.
yes,
Like that is so sweet.
yeah, it is really really sad, and it's kind of like who he is and his legacy and the history of his family completes his magic.
Mhm.
Like that's what allows his magic to evolve, and previously he didn't know the power that he wielded, and he used it for what can kind of be seen as trivial purposes. He didn't know
Mhm.
what it could do, and it is a hero's journey thing where where he's going on the quest and he's discovering the power within him, and he needs elements of his past to unlock that. So that does feel very much like a classic mythology arc that they're clicking into. I like how that was handled.
I mean, the battle itself was very anticlimactic, and I didn't really like it. In fact, I don't like it at all. Yeah, so I really wish the ending could have been better because I'm not even I'm okay with it not being this super action based climax. I love the ending for Paranorman where he realizes that all the girl wants is a friend or whatever, or someone to believe her. And I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
that climax is super beautiful and he relates to her. And that's how he defeats the villain. Who's not really a villain, she's just a poor lonely girl who was murdered for being herself. And she didn't do anything wrong. And I love that about Paranorman's ending. And I feel like in this one, it feels too sentimental, and for everything that came before it didn't have as much weight as it wanted to have. Like I understand what they're going for. They wanted to go for, a very nice sentimental memories. Memories are stronger than hate or whatever. But I don't know. It didn't work for me. Did it work for you? Probably not, right?
it didn't really work for me, but I understood what they were doing with it, and I think that the imagination of it sort of made up for how kind of anticlimactic the ending was. Like, I always feel it's a bit of a cop out when the hero doesn't kill the villain out of a sense of righteousness. So it's kind of like if you kill them, you're gonna be just like them, so you have to take the high road, no matter what the character has done. I always like it when villains get what's coming to them. I find that that's very cathartic. It's part of the reason why I love the Indiana Jones movies so much. Yeah. So yeah, I was a little bit bummed that he had to save his grandpa after all the stuff that happened.
Mm-hmm.
This just make me a terrible
I
person.
No, I mean, so I like Disney how they kill off Disney villains where the Disney villains are always the ones that kill themselves.
Hoist by their own
I like
petard,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, like Tarzan, he strangles, like he falls down and then he gets strangled to death.
In the vines, yeah, and
Or
I mean,
Snow White, the mom falls, not the mom, but the evil witch, she falls off the cliff.
for me, like my favorite Disney villain death is Frollo.
Frollo. What happens to
In
him?
Hunter x Hunter, he plunges into the lava, like at the during the final fight. They're clinging on to the gargoyle, and then as he's falling, as he clings onto it, like the gargoyle roars at him, and then you don't know whether or not that's an actual thing that happened or whether that's something he hallucinated.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he lets go and he falls into the flames. So this is really badass.
Yeah. I prefer that kind of Disney villain death over the hero killing the villain because that makes me feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
yeah, so climax was alright. Is there any spoilers in Kubo that you wanted? Oh, did you like that the beetle was his father and the monkey was his mom?
Yeah, this is what I wanted to get into. Actually, that was spoiled for me because I was looking through
Oh
the cast
no!
list before I watched the movie. I wanted to know who was voicing whom, and then the cast list gave that away, and I was like, okay, I think I knew that the like when I was reading the cast list, I knew that Beetle was the dad, but I didn't know that Monkey was the mom.
Wait, how did the cast list give that away?
Charlize Theron as Monkey slash Sariatu, and Matthew McConaughey as Beetle slash Hanzo, comma Kubo's
Oh
father.
no!
Yeah, that's on Wikipedia. So yeah, that pretty much like I would not have guessed that Hanzo was his dad.
No, I didn't.
Yeah,
I mean, when I did, I was like, okay, come on, Phil. Come on.
yeah, I know it's one of those things that's a bit of a cop out, but my theory as to why they're kind of caricatured in kind of one note is that this is how kids see their parents. Kids see their parents as these extremes. That is like it's not like this for every family, but the way it is in a lot of sitcoms and things like that is like the mom is the exasperated hard ass and then the dad is the goofball.
Hmm.
So it's kind of like this is an idealized, exaggerated fantasy of your parents.
Well, then you can say that that's pretty much every single animated film with a mom, a hard-ass mom and a goofy dad.
No, as in like you don't know that they're the mom and the dad, but subconsciously that's what they embody. Monkey and
Oh,
Beetle.
okay.
Yeah, I think that's the angle they were going for, where they are the mom and the dad, but you don't know that until the end. And then when you do, the characterization makes sense.
Uh,
I
Still a cop out to me. And it
suppose.
doesn't help that I don't like Beetle as a character. Like
Yeah.
I like his heroism. I love that his heroism, is that such a word?
Yeah, this is
Heroism.
heroism, the sacrifice.
Yeah, I like it, but and I like how he and Kubo pretty much got along immediately. I thought that was very sweet, but mm,
Yeah,
didn't buy it.
it's really like one thing that to me was very interesting is how you have the tiny origami Hanzo, and you think that that symbolizes the dad, and you're like, okay, so that's a stand-in for the dad, and it turns out that there really was the dad as Vito.
I love how the dad dies though. Like it was so sudden. Like you think that oh the mom's gonna die, so sad. Oh the dad just got stabbed in the back, and like there was no last words. He just died, which I thought was great. Like it's terrible, but it's great because you don't really see that a lot in kids films or family films.
Yeah, it's quite ruthless. It's a gut punch, and I think that kids can take that to a certain degree. I feel that
Yeah,
yeah,
we took Lion King pretty well, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's that's one of the purposes that animated films serve. You sort of open up your mind and you open up the possibilities of what could happen in the real world, of the harshness of the real world, but in an allegorical form. So when it actually happens to you, you can, oh, this is what I saw in that cartoon, but in real life.
It's so much worse in real life though.
It is, yeah. So
Yeah.
it did. I did not expect that to happen. I did not expect them to kill people the way they did.
Especially since he's like the comedic relief.
Yes, and usually the comic relief doesn't form their sword like that. But it it was one of the things that I liked in that it was playing with convention. It wasn't a really typical kind of move.
Yeah, I really like it too. So good job, Laika. I heard like Laika is planning to make adult animated films, which I don't want
Like,
because I feel like they're the only movie studios that have the balls to make family films that maybe younger kids can't watch. And I really appreciate that.
yeah, I don't know what a Laika adult animated film would be because when I think of adult stop motion, it's either going to be Anomalisa or Team America World Police. And
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of adult animated films, they try so hard to be out there and weird that it just there's no story.
yes, that was my problem with Anomalisa.
Yeah, mine too. Like I like the film, but there's no I don't it's not very good.
Yeah, I kept on hearing about how it's the most perfect thing, and there was like there's this person of certain infamy in Singapore, and he said if he said this even before Anomalisa came out. Then he said if Inside Out wins Best Picture or Best Animated Film over Anomalisa, I'm going to slit my wrists. So if I said to say he did not slit his wrist, is still around. Um, yeah, so I really think that it was overhyped, and I feel that people liked it because of how different it was. But in the end, different doesn't necessarily mean good, doesn't necessarily mean fulfilling. And it
Yeah.
was like I heard it described as being akin to Lost in Translation, and I see that. But at the same time, I felt Lost in Translation I could get into a lot more.
I mean, like a lot of people, I hate this, but a lot of people are saying how Kubo and the Two Strings, oh, it should win the Oscars this year because over Zootopia and Finding Nemo because it's a darker film. I'm like, just because a film is dark doesn't mean it's better.
Yeah,
Like it's commendable, but it's not as if that means the story is any better than Zootopia or Finding Dory.
I feel like that's the problem that a lot of people have with the DC extended universe, where dark equals better. So that I mean that's not a problem that I have, but a lot of people are saying you completely missed the point of Superman by making it dark, and you're making it dark just because dark movies like The Dark Knight get better reception.
Which is bullshit
Yeah,
because
yeah,
whatever.
yeah. We both
Dark
talked
Knight
about
has a good story, not because it's dark.
yeah, and we both talked about how we actually like Man of Steel.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that what Kubo has going for it really is the way it interprets a different culture. I feel that like you were saying how it comes off as Japanese culture as viewed through Western eyes, and I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that makes it really interesting.
Yeah, I love it. I love it whenever like Americans take an Asian culture and then they try to make their own story with it. Because we know what we know what Asian culture is like, right? We stay in Asia, we watch a lot of Asian films, we consume a lot of Asian media. And I play a lot of Japanese games
Right? Yeah, that
and
draw
I,
on
I have
that. Yeah,
friends yeah, and I have friends who tell me a lot about Japanese culture because that's what they're into, and I'm in a freaking Japanese company anyway.
that's right.
So
Yeah,
so I understand how Japanese culture is, and to me, it's always interesting when America takes one of a culture that I know very well, and then they interpret it as their own. And I think that that's a lot cooler because it's like, cool, you guys like our culture so much that you wanna have your own take on it. Like it's kind of nice to see this hybrid, which I think is fascinating because it's not gonna replace our culture, obviously, but it's always nice to see that our culture is so interesting that another culture wants to, have a stab at it and see what they can do with it.
absolutely. And the big thing I really enjoyed with Kubo that I felt was very satisfying is that it did not feel like it was pandering to any particular market at all. It didn't feel like they were doing this so that the movie would be big in Asia. It felt like they were doing this
Hmm.
because they genuinely thought it was a fascinating mythology and a good source material to work off of. It didn't feel like they were trying to please investors from certain Asian countries, that there was some sort of Japanese money behind it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah,
It's a great
well,
movie.
let's get a little bit into the whitewashing thing. Yeah,
You
it's.
know, I because the thing is, the film didn't even make money, right?
I
So
don't think so. Yeah,
they could have saved a few bucks by actually getting Asian people to voice. Like even Mulan did that.
yeah. Like
So
there is, I think there's a good argument to be had in that Japanese animated films that are set in Europe if you're just taking Miyazaki examples, you have Porco Rosso, right? And what's another Miyazaki thing that was set in Europe? Can't think of it right now. But those are voiced by Japanese actors. And for me, I was okay with Monkey and Beetle being Charlize Theron and Matthew McConaughey respectively, but I think Kubo should have been an Asian kid.
Yep.
I,
Actually, I think all of them. Well, okay, fine. I can I can give or take the three main characters being white. Fine, they need to sell that film. But I really wish um Ralph Fiennes' character and Rooney Mara's character, at least they were voiced by Asians. George Takei's character had almost nothing to do with this film.
yes, he just went, oh my, and then that's about it. But I was very happy to hear that though. I laughed and I cheered when I heard, oh my.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, but when I saw his name in the cast list, I expected that he'd be like the fourth or fifth major character.
I mean, I would think that he'd be the villain, but he's not.
Yeah, he was random villager. And even the like old lady villager was a white lady.
I really wish. I mean, because what Travis Knight said was, "Hey, we have a black guy playing a white guy before. We had an American girl playing a British woman." But it's like it's still not fair that you're using a Japanese culture and you're not even casting people who are well aware of that culture, or even like have some sort of backstory with that culture. And I think it's not it, it's not fair. I don't know. I think that's just it, right? It's not fair that even in something as blind as voice acting, where you don't even see the face, you can't even cast Asians for that, for a
Yeah,
role that they should have been in, and
yeah.
that's really really sad.
I mean, in Hollywood, I think it's very, very chicken and egg, and people keep on saying we don't cast minorities because they're not big names, but they won't be big names if they're not cast in something first.
Yeah, and also they make the argument that, oh, if it weren't for these white actors, no one would go and see this. Well, no one went to see Kubo in America because of the Japanese culture itself. And I bet that if you actually gave some of those voice actors who Japanese voice actors, their roles in a Japanese culture film, then I think some people would actually want to support this film because this is a whitewashed voice cast, and there's no way to get around it. Like, you can say whatever you want, Travis Knight, but that's what you did. You completely whitewashed this cast.
Like, I think that let's go back to comparing it to Mulan and to Kung Fu Panda. And in Mulan, it is
And Big
primarily
Hero 6?
yes, that's right, Big Hero 6 as well. And in that's the thing I like about Big Hero 6 is that the kid is an Asian kid, is Ryan Potter, and I don't think Art Parkinson is a name that people are going to the theater to see. And if you're gonna cast an unknown, the perfect role to do it is in the role of a kid. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I feel that it's a no-brainer to cast an Asian kid for Kubo, but I kind of understand why they had white actors for Monkey and for Beetle. But I am
I don't even know if Game of Thrones fans would actually come out and watch. Oh, a Stark kid
yeah
is in this film.
Rickon
Let's go watch
Stark,
it.
yeah, such a big name Rickon Stark is. Oh yeah, it's uh
Sorry.
I mean it's a bad
He
example.
did a fantastic job though. Like he did a fantastic job. Don't get us wrong.
He was good, yeah. It's a bad example, but in the current Batman animated films, there's an unknown kid voicing Damien, and he's not a
Mm-hmm.
good voice actor, but it
He's
makes
terrible.
he's very bad. Yeah, but why not cast an unknown? I'm sure there are hundreds and thousands of Japanese kids whom you could cast, and the immediate example that comes to mind is when they cast Jordan the guy in Up. The kid who plays Russell.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Like that's not a Stark kid or whatever Game of Thrones was in 2009, that year's Game of Thrones. But uh, yeah, that is the thing that I'm not trying to get overly worked up about it, and I still think that there's merit to some of Travis Knight's arguments, but I really wanted it to be an Asian kid voicing Kubo.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Yeah.
Actually, I wish the whole cast was Asian, but never mind. Because I mean, okay, when it comes to live action, I think I'm more lenient on that because I think people, especially in America, they really are they're kind of racist. When they see an Asian in a large film, they're like, "Oh, that's an Asian film."
Right.
Over, "Oh, that's just a good film," or that's a film I want to watch. But in animated films, I feel like that's a great opportunity for them to cast Asian actors and to not give them this role, especially as a love letter to the Japanese culture. I think it's so dumb and stupid that they did not cast an Asian cast.
Yeah, it's weird because the argument goes both ways. It's kind of like you don't see their faces, so they can be whatever. But at the same time, you don't see their faces, so they can also be whatever. You can spin the argument either way, for or against.
Yeah, but our arguments are better. Okay.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which kind
so
of like
anything?
before we go on, there is currently the rumor that Ryan Potter wants to be Tim Drake.
Oh, there's no rumor in that. He tweeted that he's like Team Drake. That sounds cool.
Like he wants to be Tim Drake, but so the rumor is whether or not Tim Drake actually exists in the DCU.
As long as they cast Zac Efron as Nightwing.
You know what? I wanted them to cast Daniel Henney as Nightwing once I heard that once I heard that they were considering Steven Yeun. Because if Tadashi was Nightwing and Hero was if Tadashi was Dick and Hero was Tim, I'd be so happy.
Tadashi was Nightwing and Hero was Tim. Oh, it kind of.
Right.
All right. But Nightwing has to die. Okay.
Yeah, so that's Kubo and the two strings, I suppose.
Yeah. You know what? I think he'll be an awesome Tim Drake. He can do martial arts.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
It's just like
I'm all for it.
When they did that,
Ryan Potter as Tim Drake.
I'm all for it as well. I don't think being white or the race matters to the character of Tim Drake. I don't think.
They all look Asian anyway, except they have blue eyes.
Yeah, they all have those like what you call it, Bishonen statues.
Yeah.
Yeah, that like the most Bishonen character in DC is Nightwing.
Bishonen.
Bishi, right. Thank you for teaching me this. It's all Greek to me. So yeah, I would like Ryan Potter as Tim Drake as well.
Okay, so I didn't put any news because I thought we weren't gonna talk about it, but since we're all about DC now, let's just talk about what's his name being cast as Deathstroke.
Oh, Joe Manganiello. All right, yeah, let's do that. Okay, so I'm gonna have a chance to name drop because I interviewed Joe Manganiello on the phone.
Oh, as in recently?
Last year for Magic Mike XXL. And I asked him, can you comment about the Deathstroke Suicide Squad rumors? And it's kind of like, there are always going to be rumors, it's just rumors.
Bullshit.
So I'm so happy that I managed to sneak in something about Deathstroke when I was talking to the guy who would eventually become Deathstroke.
Congrats.
Yay!
Do you think he's perfect for the role?
Yeah, I think he's pretty good. He's got the look. He's a scary big guy. He's really muscly. His like personal workout regimen has been called the toughest workout in Hollywood. He's published like this workout book, and it looks like pure torture murder. And at the same time, I think it's really funny that he was Flash Thompson in the old Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies. He was the high school bully who was like pushing Peter Parker about. Yeah, the role I kind of wanted him for. He's way too tall. Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
Because he has done like the feral wolfman thing in True Blood. Mm-hmm. But I could see him as Deathstroke as well. And I don't have this off the top of my head, but do you know their ages, like Joe Manganiello versus Ben Affleck, how old they are?
I know Joe I can't pronounce his last name.
Like say Manga.
He's like 40 plus. Manga
Yellow.
Manganiello. Thank
Manganiello,
you.
yeah.
He's about 40. No, he's 39.
That's weird, right? That Deathstroke is younger than Batman.
That's alright.
I don't know. I feel like Deathstroke should always be kind of an old dude.
I was kind of
it's fine.
hoping for a Teen Titans film, or at least, a Teen Titans, or at least a Robin film, because so Deathstroke can come in, but I guess he's with Batman now.
Yeah, Deathstroke has really been co-opted as a Batman villain, even though he was explicitly originally a Teen Titans villain. And
I hope that means Nightwing is coming, but I don't think so.
yeah.
If anything, I think this confirms the rumor that this is going to be an Arkham-based Batman.
Yeah, I guess so.
Arkham Asylum-based Batman, yeah.
Like, on TV, I love Manu Bennett, the way he plays Deathstroke, but I really didn't like the backstory that they gave him, the reason why he became evil. It's all because of his girl died. And I feel like that doesn't seem like something Slade would do. And I think that they also didn't really have that family history. Like in Arrow, Ravager is the CEO of a company. Ravager is not his daughter. So I want there to be a Jericho with Joe Wilson and Ravager. I want them to go all the way into his family history and maybe use this as a backdoor for the Teen Titans. Like you first see Deathstroke in an Arkham type setting, and then later like where did this guy come from, and his origin or like his beginnings as a villain all has a tie into the Titans. So that would make me happy. But at the same time, the Teen Titans cannot exist without the Justice League. So I don't know how it's gonna happen.
It's not.
Yeah. I just hope that they have references to how he started out as a Titans villain.
Yeah.
But Joe Manganiello, he's been the top name for the longest time because he was in that David Ayer movie Sabotage. I'm
just glad that DC finally casted someone that people wanted.
That's true, yeah. That this is the one where everyone is like, that will work.
Oh yeah.
Like Photoshop his face everywhere. It was kind of like Bryan Cranston is what we thought we were gonna get for Lex Luthor.
And then we got what's his name?
Jesse Eisenberg.
Jesse Eisenberg.
Yeah, we got Columbus from Zombieland. Yeah, so
alright, so I'll be away on a holiday for a week. So next week we won't have anything again. I'm so sorry. Are you going off?
Yeah, I think I'm going off next week. Like I have, I have like a short holiday with my family, and then after that, the next weekend I'm also away. So yeah.
I will try to, because we still have Close Encounters.
Yes, I was waiting for that to come out, but I didn't want to bother you because you're really busy this past 2 weeks.
Yeah, so I'll just put it up when I can somehow edit it to make it sound like we intended it. We intended for it to be at that week.
You have to wait for another Spielberg movie to come out.
No, it's alright. I think I'll just put it like next week or 2 weeks.
Like when Ready Player One comes out in 2018, and then you roll out this Close Encounters episode.
I hate that book so much. Okay, so I don't know whether I'll think of something like in 2 weeks, but if I don't, then I'll probably just put up Close Encounters.
Okay then.
That'd be pretty fun.
Yeah.
I really like our Close Encounters, by the way. It had it really helped me appreciate the film a lot more, but at the same time, I didn't feel guilty for not loving it.
Yeah, I love these opportunities to go back to older movies and sort of look at it through the lens of the history or legacy of the film, and I hope we have the chance to do that again when there's like a week when nothing's coming out.
Which will be soon, I'm sure.
Yeah, there's gonna be like a lull period, but like this week I'm super busy. There's so many screenings this week, and I'm watching Magnificent Seven this week, so I'm pretty excited about that.
Lucky. Okay. So see you whenever
you're
free.
See you whenever.
Bye.
Bye, Jerry. Thanks for listening.